Hello again, everyone. This is Nick Sharmick and Howard Chow with Doon Insights and our podcast, What's Next In. We're focusing again on ag and food tech, and this time with a irrigation tech startup called SWAN Systems. So the founder out of Australia has put together an advanced irrigation technology system that is really helpful in cutting down water use on the farm. We had a couple startups actually in the irrigation tech sector this year. Howard, what do you think about the space, and what do you think about SWAN Systems?
Well, I like both the technology and Tim Hyde, the founder, a lot. Tim flew all the way from Australia to come to our event, which showed a lot of commitment. But he's been flying to the U.S. frequently because he sees the U.S. as his primary target market up beyond Australia. I like them a lot for several reasons. First of all, they have not only built integrations with over 100 different hardware manufacturers and sensor manufacturers into their system, which is really a software system. But they also have predictive analytics within their system, which is very, very powerful within the system, allowing farmers to optimize their water use, not just minimize, but optimize, so that they make them much more efficient. And, it's hard to find really strong software stories in ag tech, frankly. Ag tech tends to be more hardware focused than most sectors. But this is a pure software play, so it has a lot of the characteristics of a software company. All the characteristics of a software company, but in a sector where it's hard to be just software. So I like them for many reasons.
Great. Well, here is Tim Hyde, the founder of SWAN Systems, speaking at our Ag and Food Tech workshop this spring.
So I guess following on from Will, who we know. We've got a massive global issue with water, and it's one that's not necessarily getting the attention it needs. Tim Hyde, CEO, co-founder of SWAN Systems. We're a passionate team of agronomists and scientists and computer coders that are developing a system, or have developed a system to help farmers be more efficient, profitable, and sustainable with water. We come from Australia. That's the driest continent in the world. We're a product of adversity breeds opportunity, and we've been pulled into the California market in the last 12 months for an industry that's facing the same issues we've faced for 20 years. Next slide, please. So one of the real challenges is, as an industry, we've got to move from data measurement to water management. So there's been an explosion of technologies and I mentioned before, of farm sort of technologies that they're great, but every activity has an app, and not every farmer wants every app. So wouldn't it be good if there was a scalable technology that used your current systems, that embedded the agronomic intelligence into a farming system? And that's what we're trying to do. Next slide, please. So our vision is to have a system that's completely scalable, and the realities are it's quite complex. These different stakeholders in water management, they've all got predominantly aligned interests. They've all got very similar challenges and problems, but unique enough and very different. So to have a system that's going to be successful in the marketplace, it has to, be able to make the irrigator's life easy and help the corporate entity do the ESG reporting and water use efficiency. So across the whole stakeholders, it's actually quite complex. And we can do that by drawing on the same data sets, but with a focus on the different stakeholders. It's quite unique. Next slide, please. So on the left here, we have, as it is now, multiple systems, multiple data sets. You'll notice there's a notepad there. I still call notes and manual data data. It's disparate, it's siloed data, very hard to draw any insights out. And, turning that into a functioning system and with management insights, it's really hard. So on the right-hand side of this diagram, we've got SWAN Systems, where we've created an ecosystem. We work with over 100 data providers. And the way we view it is we're stitching together the jigsaw puzzle to get a better decision making and a better product and a more sophisticated offer to the market, because they're all great little pieces of the pie, but none of them are really scalable. very hard to be scalable. Hardware breaks down and there's a whole lot of issues with it. So stitch it together and create an ecosystem. And by doing that, we can create a cost-effective, easy to use, high return on investment system for managing water, nutrition, and crop health for a farm. And by doing that, we can help manage climatic impacts. And we can also help manage human resource risks by embedding that IP into the farming system. Next slide, please. So we are a scale up. We've been in California for 11 months. We've had a great reception in the marketplace. We have projects from Washington, Napa, Central Valley down the Imperial Valley down south. We, if our history in Australia is anything to go by, we get very little churn. A lot of people use it on one ranch and then I'll scale it from there. Our current customers represent about 150,000 acres, so it's a great pipeline, probably $2 or $3 million. So we're really happy with what we've achieved in 11 months. We are raising a $4 million con note, 50% secured by a lead investor, and I'd love to have a chat with anyone who thinks they might be interested. Thank you.
Okay. So you're an investor.
Not
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, do you want to start with questions or do you want me?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you end up working with, you say, 100 different data providers across the globe. So when a new data provider arrives, like, how do you vet him? Like, how do you decide whether or not you want to work and integrate their data into your system?
If there's a business case or a customer that wants it, so we let the customers, if a customer's got a new soil moisture probe or a system or a weather station or whatever, if there's a business case, then we'll go and spend the effort and money to develop the collector.
So do you see this data provider making efforts to make sure their technology can be integrated in systems like yours?
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, 3 or 4 years ago, a lot of them didn't have APIs, so it wasn't as easy. But now there's a real appetite. I think a lot of control companies, a lot of hardware companies have realised that they are only a piece of the pie, and there's a good appetite now for them to realise that they should integrate.
And you told me, Tim, that you're basically trying to implement two-way APIs. In other words, you can go input data, but then you can also issue instructions into their API. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we've got a function in SWAN that is called system suggested irrigation. So if you've got a large, say, vineyard that's got 100 valves, there might be 5 different varieties of crops. There might be different soil types and a whole lot of balls in the air. We can run the optimizer, and that gives you a suggested irrigation every day for the coming week. And then if you push that, if we can publish that, and that's available for a controller to pull it in. So we work with Motorola, Galcon, both out of Israel, and then Wisecon, the South American group. So that's something there's more and more interest in. It takes a human error out of someone scheduling such a complicated system.
So out of the universe of all possible partners that you could integrate with, what % have you got covered right now in terms of really big ones?
Probably 90%. But
90%.
It took us 3 years to work with Rainbird, Lindsay Pivots, and some of those larger ones. It's taken a while, but we've probably got a lot. All the major ones. Sometimes when you go to a new market, there's a new contender, but we're pretty well placed.
So is that the hardest thing that you've done? I mean, I know it's hard to create a system. It's hard to create the software, but is the hardest thing you've done to actually persuade all these companies to integrate with you? Or is that one of the what's the hardest thing you've done?
Funny story. My partner spends a lot of time in Israel, and that's where probably 2/3 of our technology partners are. And he used to go to meetings and their arms would be folded. They say, we do that. And then they'd work out, oh, we don't do that. And we didn't know whether they'd been insulted or not, but they called us the McDonald's of precision agriculture. So, once you sort of work it through and say, listen, you do that and we do this, they generally get it, but it takes some time. We've only ever had one knockback from a technology company.
I mean, I don't know if this is similar to Plaid or one of these other sort of financial platforms, but I think someone told me once that one of the hardest things Plaid had to do was to figure out how to create those relationships with all these financial institutions, right? So I don't know if that's an analogy that you would buy into.
Most of them have been pretty good.
Okay.
And sometimes they might not even know we're there. We just write a bit of code and jump in with the user's password and strip out the data. It's simple.
Other questions? I mean, I have a question about competition, but anybody else have questions before we? Yeah, go ahead, Laura. Could you speak into the microphone? We have people online that need to hear you.
What kind of results have you seen from the actions that you've recommended to farmers, either in terms of yield or water savings or other factors that you measure?
Good question. It's quite specific to the needs. Like, we don't actually promote saving water because farmers think loss aversions, they'll value a loss at twice the value of a benefit of saving water. So it's about optimization of water. But generally there's a really significant increase in yield, 10, 20%, and a reduction in water and better fruit quality. So we did our first pilot in California. We had a 40% increase, a 16% increase in water, but his water use efficiency went up by 26%. And we see that as the benchmark for future water usage is going to be how many gallons of water go up a pound of almonds. And that terminology is helping.
Other questions? Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you.